This video will teach you basic search techniques that you can use when searching most library databases and search engines. Each database or search engine has its own unique features, its own unique collection, or sources that it's searching. These tips are broadly applicable whether you're searching the library search box, a database, Google Scholar, or the web using a search engine. The first step is to think of the unique concepts within your search question or topic. For example, if your research question is, how did Indian boarding schools affect Native Americans in the Pacific Northwest? Your goal is to find sources that would help you answer that question. You need to find sources that are on the concepts that encompass your question. So what are the unique concepts that encompass my research question? There are Indian boarding schools, Native Americans, and the Pacific Northwest. If I find information related to those three concepts, I should find information that would help me answer my research question. When you enter your search terms into a database or search engine, they'll generally be matched to words in the title, subject, descriptions, abstracts, or abstracts of a source. Thus, you want to think of words that might appear in the title, subjects, descriptions, or abstracts. Different sources might call the same concept by a different name. For example, one source might refer to the Pacific Northwest, while another source might refer to a specific state or locality. Thus, it'd be good to think of similar terms or synonyms. Your next step is to think of terms with similar meanings. You might not know many of these when you start out learning about your topic, but you can find some when you do your background reading and in reference sources after you start searching and see some of the search results. Then you can update your search terms to include the new ones you found. For our research question, we know that Indian boarding schools might also be referred to as boarding schools, residential schools, or Indian schools. Native Americans might also be referred to as American Indians, Indigenous Americans, or First Nations. We'll also include the states and province in the Pacific Northwest, including Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and British Columbia. So these are some of the basic searches that we could do. Let's search the library search box using one of these different terms. So we'll try Indian boarding schools in the Pacific Northwest. We get 2,592 results. There are some articles, books, a dissertation in these search results, and a few of them look quite relevant. If we search residential schools in the Pacific Northwest, or residential schools Pacific Northwest, we get 13,986 results. But the results do not look very relevant. And as we see by the search results, the database is giving us search results not only related to residential schools that are Indian boarding schools, but also results that are related to the word residential itself. This illustrates why it's good to use different search terms because you'll get different results. If you do a search and don't find relevant sources in the results, you'll need to just try a different search. This is also why you want to use some of the more advanced search techniques that we'll talk about next so that you can better control how the database is interpreting your results. In order to control your search results more, you can use the following advanced search techniques. We'll do examples of them, but to start out, you can connect your search terms with and, such as Indian boarding schools and Pacific Northwest. This will bring you results about both Indian boarding schools and the Pacific Northwest, and you should see fewer search results this way. You can connect your search terms with or when you have synonyms or words with similar meanings. For example, you could enter Indian boarding schools or residential schools, and this would bring you search results about either Indian boarding schools or residential schools, and you'd get more search results that way. When you want to exclude search results related to a specific word, you could write not, and then the keyword you want to exclude. For example, if you want to search for Washington, but not Washington, DC, you could enter Washington, not DC, and you would not see search results related to Washington, DC. However, I seldom use this because I usually can find relevant search results just by using and or. You don't want to intentionally exclude relevant search results by using not. Finally, you could put quotation marks around phrases or logical word pairings, usually 2 to 3 words. For example, we noticed that when we searched residential schools, we got search results about the word residential and school that were completely unrelated to Indian boarding schools or to schools. However, if we put quotation marks around residential schools, we would only see search results that are related to that term. Now let's get into using our advanced search techniques. So when using and or in quotation marks, you can start by connecting your similar terms with or. When we connect our search terms with or, it asks the database to bring us results with any of those search terms. And it makes it so that we don't miss out on search results. Let's see how this works. Let's put Indian boarding schools into the library search box and click search. We get about 30,000 search results with this search term. But if we put in Indian boarding schools or boarding school or residential school or Indian schools, we get 1,700,000 results. So you can see that we're getting many other search results that we might have missed otherwise. Now we can connect our search terms with and. And means that all of the search terms must be present in your search results. This means that you'll get fewer search results. And in this example, when we connect our terms with and, the database will return search results that have all the groupings of these search terms. In this case, the search results would be related to any of the terms we've listed referring to Indian boarding schools, and any of the terms we've listed referring to Native Americans, and any of the terms we've listed referring to the Pacific Northwest. So we should be seeing fewer search results on the topic that we would like. So to enter this search into the search box, we can just simply paste the long string in, or we can actually use the advanced search boxes that appear here and write. So we could actually paste the individual sections in here. I'm just pasting in the groupings connected by or, and then all of them are connected by and, just like on our slide. However, we could also just paste this into the simple search box. Paste the whole thing in. And we can see we get about the same results, or we do get the same results. Another great tip is to use quotation marks. When we put quotation marks around a series of words, such as a phrase, or logical 2 or 3 word pairings, it makes the database bring up search results related to all of those words in that exact order. For example, if we put in social media, we would only see results related to social media as opposed to media in general. For our search, if we enter Indian boarding schools, we shouldn't see search results related to just boarding schools or to schools in general. It's good to use this technique if you notice you're getting search results which aren't on topic. The goal of using quotation marks is to narrow your search results to those that are only those that are on your topic. Let's just try an example where we put quotation marks around Indian boarding schools, boarding school, residential school, and Indian school, and we'll leave the rest of our search string the same. Let's see how our search results change if we do that. So we'll enter in that search with the quotation marks from that slide. And doing this, this reduced our search results from 360,000 to 27,000. And the results do look relevant. So it looks like it was a good idea to add the quotation marks into our search. To see if your search results are relevant, the first thing you would do is look at the titles. If you see a title that looks relevant, just click on the title and you can see if there is an abstract or a summary here. You can also look at any, if there's any subject terms here, to give you additional search terms that you'd like to add. If you'd like to read it, then look for the full text option or the option to get it on the shelf. Then keep changing your search terms until you have search results that are on your topic. Remember, you could remove search terms to make your search terms more general or more specific. The next thing you want to pay attention to in the library search box and databases are filters. Each database and search engine has different filters, so check them out. You can often limit your search results to a specific publication date or type of sources. For example, if we want to see sources published since 2010, we could write 2010 and click refine or apply filters. And now we're only seeing search results that were published within this time period. Another relevant one would be to limit to a type of source, such as articles from peer-reviewed journals. And these are journals that send articles to experts in a given field to review the articles before publishing them. So they're good quality sources, good quality information. You could also limit to other types of sources, such as ebooks or print books. Now, we could use the same search terms in different databases or search engines. So for example, let's look at Academic Search Premier, which is a database containing articles from most academic disciplines. We'll click Databases on the library's homepage and then click Academic Search Premier. Notice how similar it looks with the advanced search boxes connected by and the filters on the bottom of the screen. First of all, if I start typing in search terms, notice how it recommends similar search terms for you connected by or. So that's something you can use. Let's just paste in the search terms we were using though. And can see these results. Now let's try searching Google Scholar. So we'll click on G for Google and we'll scroll down the page. And click on Google Scholar. Clicking the link from the library's website makes it so that we can link back to the full text of articles that are available through the library. So we'll paste our search string in just like we did in Academic Search Premier. And we see get full text article whenever there is an article that the library has full text for. And it links you back to the article so that you can read it. Don't let these search techniques stress you out. They're just tools to help you search more effectively and to save you time. Sometimes a simple search works best, and sometimes using these advanced search techniques will bring you exactly what you're looking for. So try them out and make them your own.